Yes, guys, welcome back to the 4 Ounce Fanatic channel. It is a new year, and we're back with a new video. I hope everyone had a great new year, great Christmas. But yeah, today I will be predicting every champion by the end of 2026. We'll be going through the men's and women's weight classes. Also, just talk a little bit about the title picture, who their defenses might be, who's going to win the belt, who's going to lose the belt, etc., but stuff like that. But without further ado, let's get into the first weight class. We're going to go from flyweight up to men's heavyweight and then cover the women's division. So, yeah, let's get into it, man. For flyweight, I think Kyoji Horiguchi is going to be the flyweight champion by the end of 2026. Um, Now, this is a bit of a bold pick by me. I think a lot of people would be predicting Joshua Van to retain the belt. But I do think what's going to happen in this weight class this year is that Manel Cup is going to fight Joshua Van for the belt at some point midway through the year, maybe May, June, I'm thinking. And he's going to finish Joshua Van by knockout. And Kyoji Horiguchi obviously has that fight scheduled against Amir Albazi. I believe that's in March, maybe? I'm not sure. But either way, he is going to beat Amir Albazi by 50-45 decision. Or I don't know. It might be a main event. I'm not even sure. He's going to fucking smoke Amir Albazi, dude. If you just look at the activity levels, the experience, Albazi's had a lot of serious health issues in the last few years. He's been quite inactive. Um, yeah. And if you look at his fights, Albazi's fights against top five opponents, he struggled. He lost to Moreno. He got that fucking split decision robbery over Kakar France about 3 years ago. And yeah, I just don't see him beating Kyoji Horiguchi, man. So I think, yeah, Kappa's going to win the belt, beat Josh Van by knockout, and then he's going to fight Horiguchi for the belt. Now, obviously, Tatsu Rotaro is still in that picture. I do think maybe he gets injured or just something happens where Horiguchi kind of steps in and fights Manel Cup for the belt and basically just Muhammad Makayevs him and wins the belt. And then they're going to set up a Pantoja fight with him next year sometime. Maybe we'll have a Marab Aljo situation where obviously they are training partners and they may not want to fight each other. But yeah, I'm actually going to just go out on a limb here and say that Kyoji Horiguchi will be the flyweight champion by the end of 2026. Moving on to the bantamweight division. I go Umar, man. Obviously, he lost to Marab earlier last year, and yeah, but I do think this. A lot of people are also predicting this guy to be the champion eventually. Um, Obviously, it was a pretty close fight with Marab. He won the first couple rounds, but he kind of gassed out. Obviously, if he works on his gas tank, maybe a bit of his conditioning, stuff like that, he will be able to win the belt. I do think he's going to beat Figueiredo this weekend, and then fight Peter Yan later on in the year, maybe like August, September, and win by decision. Yeah, I just think he's a bad matchup for Yan. Um, I don't think he's going to dominate Yan the way that Marab did in the first fight, but I do think it'll be a lot closer as Yan is very skilled and he has leveled up. I do think Umar will have the advantage in the grappling, probably not the striking. I mean, a lot of people say he is a good striker. I know he's a good striker, but I just see Umar winning the belt, maybe like August, September this year, and yeah, setting up a rematch with Marab perhaps if he wins another fight. Obviously, they're going to do that third fight with Yan and Marab, and I think Yan is going to win that. But yeah, we'll see, man. I just think Umar will be winning the belt by the end of 2026, man. All right, moving on to the featherweight division. We've got Diego Lopez. Um, yeah, guys, just let me explain. Hear me out. Hear me out. Um, yes, I know. He is fighting my glorious king Volkanovski next weekend in Australia. And unfortunately, I think Diego Lopez is going to win, man. I think he's going to finish Volk this time. Obviously, last time he almost knocked him out at the end of the second round, dropped him. I don't know, man. I just think Volk is just taking too much damage. He's obviously he's experienced. Diego Lopez is hungry. He's just coming off that win over John Silva. I just see him winning the belt. And here's what I think in regards to a first title defense for Diego Lopez. I think he's either going to fight like Lerone Murphy and win, or maybe he might get injured. And they do an interim bout with Movsan Lerone or Movsan someone, and Movsan's going to win the belt, the interim belt. Um, despite the outcries of every single fan in the fucking UFC universe. Um, and then they're going to set up a super fight rematch with Diego and Mobsar early next year. But man, I don't even think Mobsar is going to get a title shot this year, honestly. Especially now that we're in the new era of Paramount, and they seem to be leaning towards making more kind of exciting fights. Not really like they're not really favoring the grapplers. You know, obviously they just released, um, guys like Rinat Fakhretdinov, who, despite being fucking undefeated in the UFC, is just too boring for their brand apparently. So yeah, I don't really see Mofsar getting a title shot unless maybe Diego Lopez gets injured. But hey man, I do think Diego Lopez will be the champion by the end of 2026. And maybe they do a rematch with John Silver. I could see them doing that shit if he beats Arnold Allen this weekend. But hey, who knows, man? Who knows? All I know is that I think Diego Lopez will be the featherweight champion by the end of 2026. Moving on to lightweight, we got Arman Tsarukyan, man. Listen, all I know is that Arman Tsarukyan is going to win the belt without fighting Ilia Topuria. I don't know what the fuck's going on with this guy, man. Obviously, he's got the legal issues. There was many talks of Arman stepping in on short notice this weekend because Gaethje had some sort of staph wound on his neck, and they were talking about like it being an undisputed belt because Ilia's not actually injured. Like, I don't know, man. I just have a feeling Ilia is going to vacate the belt and move up to 170 to try and fight Islam, or maybe just do a boxing match with Terence Crawford or some shit. He's going down the McGregor path, is all I'm going to say. But yeah, man, I do think Arman Tsarukyan is going to beat the winner of Paddy and Gaethje this weekend, and yeah, fight them probably. I'm thinking maybe like Abu Dhabi card, October maybe. This guy's been pretty inactive. I wouldn't be surprised if he fights, in fucking 9 months. He needs plenty of time to prepare for one of those guys. But yeah, I just see him beating probably Paddy. I do think Paddy's going to win this weekend. But yeah, man, I just think Arman's going to be the champion by the end of the year without having to fight Ilia, and everyone's going to call him a paper champ. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man. All right, moving on to the welterweight division. Brother, of course, I'm going to be champion by the end of this year, brother. Nobody going to beat me. Islam Makhachev, dude. I mean, who is going to fucking beat this guy at 170? I do think they're going to book him versus Morales, maybe in like June. I'm thinking June, July, something like that. And he's obviously going to beat Morales by 50-45 decision. I don't really see Morales getting finished. Either that or he will get submitted. I don't know, man. But yeah, I do think Morales could perhaps give Islam some trouble on the feet early on, but then he's just going to get fucking taken down and smothered, like we all expect. But yeah, I do think that Islam probably only fights once this year. I think maybe he could fight Ian Gary. I think Ian Gary, he doesn't really have anyone else to fight in the top, 5 unless he fights JDM. Like I could see a timeline where Ian Gary beats JDM and then he kind of waits till the end of the year to get a title shot. So I could see Islam beating Morales and Gary this year. But the more likely thing is he fights once this year and beats Morales, and then we don't see him for another fucking 10 months. Yeah, I think that's the most likely outcome for welterweight. The title picture, all that stuff. Islam obviously will still be the champion at the end of 2026. And obviously in middleweight as well. I thought Dana say you have to give the fucking belt, man. Yeah, Hamza Chimaev will be the UFC champion of the 185 division at the end of 2026. Similar to Islam, man, he's only fighting once this year, dude. Let's be real. He is fighting once this year, and we're not going to see him again for another 10 months, similar to Islam. He's going to beat Imavov probably in like maybe August, September, something like that. Maybe Abu Dhabi card. I could see them putting that as the main event for the Abu Dhabi card in October. Big two, like Dagestani, like Muslim guys facing off. But yeah, he's going to beat Nasruddin Imavov by boring grappling decision and then just not fight for another year. That's pretty much all I got to say about Hamza Chimaev and the middleweight division this year. Moving on to 205 light heavyweight. Let's go for that. Mark my words, man. Yuri Prohaska will be the UFC champion of the light heavyweight division in 2026, or by the end of it at least. Here's what's going to happen, man. Alex Pereira is not going to be fighting at light heavyweight ever again. He's going to vacate his belt. He's going to move up to heavyweight, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that shortly. He's going to move up to heavyweight. Yuri Prohaska will fight. Apparently, he's been booked to fight Alberg. I don't know what's going on there. It could be potentially a vacant title fight. If not, he beats Alberg either way, and then we get a fight between him and Ankalaev for the vacant belt. Or I don't know, man. Him versus Mirza. Actually, yeah, no. Yeah, I got it. Mirzakhanov beats Paulo Costa, and we get Yuri versus Mirzakhanov for the vacant belt later on this year. Maybe like, I don't know, man. I'm trying to fit in all these title fights in every month. Um, I'm not sure, man. Maybe like just later on in the year, do September, October, yeah, something like that. Yuri Prohaska will beat Mirzakhanov in an absolute fucking war and regain the throne at 205. And let's go for that. Anyway, moving on to heavyweight. Have you ever been fingered by an MMA fighter? Yeah, Tom Aspinall is going to be the UFC heavyweight champion by the end of 2026. He's going to fight Pereira at the White House, and he's going to win. And I don't really see him fighting anyone else. Obviously, he's had that eye injury. He needs time to recover. It's a big card. And yeah, I just think Pereira will be vacating his light heavyweight belt and moving up, fighting Tom Aspinall. And, you know, we all love Pereira, man, but I do think he will probably lose that fight, unfortunately. And Tom Aspinall will still be the UFC heavyweight champion by the end of 2026. I could see it being maybe a close fight, like people saying it's a robbery. They do a rematch earlier in 2027. But who knows, man? All I know is that Tom Aspinall will be UFC heavyweight champion at the end of the year. I mean, one more thing, though. I could see him maybe doing a second defense, like December, maybe against, like, I don't know. I have a feeling they're not going to book the rematch versus Garn, but they could do it at the end of the year. Maybe like Garn, or maybe he fights Cortez Acosta if he beats Derek Lewis this weekend. Um, yeah, something like that, man. But that is my predictions for the men's divisions. Moving on to the women's divisions, starting at 115, we've got Wei Li Zhang. Obviously, she just got dominated by Valentina Shevchenko, moving up a weight class. She tried her best, man, but she's just not big enough for that weight class, unfortunately. And yeah, what's going to happen is pretty obvious. I think she's going to obviously move back down to 115. She's going to beat Mackenzie Dern, and then yeah, just not fight for another year. That's pretty much what's going to happen in the women's strawweight division. And yeah, moving on to 125. Now this is an interesting one. I got Natalia Silva, man. Now hear me out. She will beat Rose Namajunas this weekend. There's a lot of number one contender fights on this card this weekend. I just realized that. Anyway, she will beat Rose Namajunas this weekend. She will fight Valentina Shevchenko midway through the year, maybe like July, August, and she'll beat her maybe by like a robbery decision. I think she definitely has a speed advantage. She's got more hunger than Shevchenko. She's a lot younger. Obviously, there is the grappling deficiency when it comes to, you know, just overall skill sets. But yeah, I just think Natalia Silva will be winning the belt, and they'll do a rematch, and she'll lose. I think this will be like an Alexa Grasso situation where she kind of beats Shevchenko by a bit of a fluke, maybe. And in the second fight, it's like, I know there was a draw in the second fight, but the second fight against Shevchenko will just be like a boring, like she'll just grapple her, keep her on the ground, similar to the third Grasso fight. But yeah, that's my predictions for the UFC Women's Flyweight Champion and the title picture. And the last division, we got Kayla Harrison, of course. Obviously, the co-main event was supposed to be, for this weekend, the co-main event was supposed to be Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes. Kayla Harrison got injured. Regardless of whether or not they rebook that fight, I think they will, but who knows, man. Nunes might just fucking retire again. We have no idea. But yeah, regardless of whether or not they rebook that fight, I think Kayla Harrison wins. And then she has maybe one more title defense at the end of the year, like against, I don't know, man. Women's bantamweight is just fucking wasteland at this point. Like, who she gonna fight? Fucking like Norma Dumont, really? Norma Dumont. All right, fuck it. Let's give her Norma Dumont in December. See what happens. Anyway, man, these are all of my predictions for the men's and women's UFC champions by the end of 2026. Um, yeah, first fights are back. Fights are back. First card of the year. I didn't want to do any predictions for this card because I just wanted to enjoy it. Get back into the swing of things with no bias whatsoever. Just wanted to enjoy the fights, man. So I hope you guys enjoy the fights too. Let me know what you thought about the video in the comment section below, and I hope you all have a great day. Goodbye.